Thank you very much. Yeah, so my name's Frankie Owens and I'm the award-winning author of The Little Book of Prison, A Beginner's Guide. That's exactly what it was. The front of the cover's got a green face in the middle of a lock and key, and that was me, I can tell you. Great news that I was going to be here tonight with Trevor Bayliss and Tony, and I realised that you're all here to see Trevor Bayliss and Tony, and I'm like, oh my God. So I'm going to give it a shot. First, if you can all sing happy birthday to me, because it's the book's birthday. It's 1 year old today. So if we could take it from the top. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Oh, I'm milking this. Happy birthday, dear Little Book of Prison, A Beginner's Guide. Happy birthday to you. Thank you very much. Secondly, my heartfelt apologies to all the victims of the offences I committed. There were 27 in total. I hope for forgiveness, but I respect their decision. But at the time, my life was like a perpetual episode of My Name is Earl, basically. I was in a very scary place. Thirdly, my apologies for self-promotion. I'm an impoverished writer, I'm skint, I'm hungry, so food was great tonight. Hands up, who's read Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky? God, we've got an educated audience tonight. Hands up, who's read Shades of Grey? There's more Crime and Punishment than Shades of Grey. Well, I think I'm more in the realms of Dostoevsky, especially judging by the first year's sales. I still owe my publisher money. Never good. So I'm a touch eccentric. I like the sort of writing of Hunter S. Thompson. He was something that I enjoyed while I was sat in my tiny cell. I'm not into his drug abuse or he killed himself in the end, bless him, but I did like the way he did his gonzo journalism and the way he changed and made Rolling Stone the sort of the way forward. Also, Will Self is another favourite writer of mine. His antics on the Tory bus, jacking up heroin and writing his column. I'm not advocating drugs, and I'm not advocating the Tory party, no chance. But Will was kind enough to give me the award, the Platinum Award for non-fiction for the book. So a lot of time for Will and a lot of time for promoting the book. I have mentioned the book, right. So I'm not from a criminal background. I had a good education, solid supportive family. I know nothing about prison except for the 5 months that I spent inside. I can tell you the insight about that and about the first part of entering the system. I can tell you that was long enough, by the way, 5 months. I never aspired to sit in my toilet for 22 hours a day, which is pretty much what you do in a tiny cell. So how did I end up in there? Well, I suffer from a mental illness, a bipolar called hypomania. You get the really big highs, but you don't get the depressive lows. So you can imagine your worst wedding experience. You've had 4 or 5 glasses of champagne, then you got the 3 bottles of white wine or liquid Rohypnol at lunch, and then the free bar opens at 5 o'clock, so you get stuck into that. So you wake up the next morning, you don't know where you've been, what you've done, why you're wearing a bridesmaid's dress, and why you are lying next to the 85-year-old bridesmaid's granny. Times that by 10, and you're not really very close to where I was and what was going on. So I carry a little yellow card which says I'm a mental health survivor. Respect to that. I mean, if I can do an impression of a famous person trying to impersonate someone in a mental home, with this card I can get away with anything. I don't do that. I'm very grateful that I've been in good health for 19 months now, and thankful that these hypomanic episodes are no longer in my life. But we talked earlier on about 1 in 3. They say mental illness affects 1 in 3. The Gary Speed tragedy still stays with me. I don't know whether he was suffering mental illness, but for someone on the outside can look as if they've got everything, a dream job, lots of money, friends, wife, children, everything, but inside something is really, really not very things aren't very good. But I take a lot of heart from Charles Bukowski, another writer I like, who says, some people never go crazy. What truly horrible lives they must lead. I quite like that. Also, 1 in 3 means a third of you are nuts, by the way. Cuckoo. So, I was arrested 30 times in 4 months. Each offence was like the wedding scenario, just wake up in a cell and then be told what happened, and I'd just say, yeah, that was me, and go guilty. So, you know, 30 arrests. Has anyone been to that many weddings in 4 months? It's a good idea for a film, mind, but I think it's been done before. But I was nearly invited to the Portsmouth Police Christmas sort of party and that, because I knew all of them. It was hideous, first name terms with all of them. I mean, one day I was rung up by CID and they said, can you come in at 11 o'clock? And I'm like, what for? Because we're arresting you for another offence. And I'm like, okay. He said, don't worry, you'll be out by 4. And I'm like, okay. So I've took my favourite book, or another favourite book, a little novella called The Man That Sold the Eiffel Tower. Fantastic book. This guy in the 1800s sold it to different countries for scrap metal. They believed he owned it. Very funny book, very good. And I took a pair of slippers because I've been in the cells that many times. I know how cold your feet get. So I've walked into the police cell and the desk sergeant, he says, never in 22 years have I ever seen a man that's putting Hugo Boss cufflinks in a bag and he's got his slippers with him. As he said it, I produced my flyers for my book launch to give to him, and all the jailers all said, hello Frankie, how are you? I'm like, yeah, good, you coming to the book launch? And then there was a pile to go in the police canteen. So I cringe now, but basically I was networking wherever I could. Because my mantra really in life, I was brought up in the hospitality industry, it's always been about making sure people enjoy themselves and looking after people. And that was kind of where the little book of prison came from. I'm hoping to do that tonight. Thank you to Sarah and the AllEars team for inviting me. Thank you to you guys for buying a ticket. Special thank you to those who creeped in via the fire exit and came in. I like your style. I've always found it's easier to ask forgiveness than it is to ask permission. My accountant told me that. There's no one here from HM Customs and Revenue, is there? So, society wants to know what prison is like. I'd say it's an interesting place to visit, but you wouldn't want to live there. But I don't know whether you saw the 3-part Strange Ways documentary. A couple of years ago now, I was on my sabbatical at the time. I was actually in prison when it was on. And 5.9 million people watched that 3-part. So there is something about society that has this thing that they want to know what prison is like. Ironically, my big pad mate at the time wanted to watch it whilst we're in that scenario. He wanted to watch that scenario play out in front of him, as did most of B-Wing. And he was bigger than me, and he, you know, like, you watch whatever you like. I was reading my book, and I did have one eye on the telly. Documentary, more like a mockumentary. I mean, that thing was scripted to pieces as far as I could see. But there's an assumption in the national lexicon about prison being a holiday camp. Well, I grew up on holiday camps. My dad used to run holiday camps, and I can tell you it is the bipolar opposite, because I'm bipolar, of a holiday camp, I can tell you. You know, who came up with that? If you were ever told you're sharp as a prison razor, right, you are dumb as dumb, and you're a donut. If you push your nose, jam comes out your ears. For me, that's the person that came up with prison being holiday camps. There's no dancing girls, there's no cabarets, there's no bars, restaurants, there's no swimming pools or steam rooms. That kind of assumption is so stupid. Prison is hard. It's supposed to be hard. Only the scared, the foolish or the blinkered would say it was easy. Since the book, I've been asked to go on radio programmes, BBC Radio 5 Live and other sort of regional programmes, and I've had some weird requests because I went in for 5 months. I know nothing about long-term prison. And a guy escaped from Pentonville, and he made a rope out of a football net and he climbed over the wall. He was in his late 50s because he wanted to see his mum. His mum wasn't well. So they got on the phone to me and said, we're going to do a thing about prison breakouts. What do you know about prison breakouts? I'm like, I was in for 5 months. Of course, my publisher was saying, Go on, just go on. So I'm telling them, oh yeah, I know loads about breakups. Yeah, oh, they were escaping every day. Yeah. Second favourite was sex in prisons. Howard League for Penal Reform, doing very sterling work in a 3-prong report about potential conjugal visits for long-term prisoners. Potential. What was it? Nikki Campbell, Radio 5 Live. They're having sex in prison. Prison's a holiday camp. Now they're having sex in prison. I'm like, do you want to come on and talk about sex in prisons? I'm like, no, actually, no, I don't. Because you're not talking about the other bits of the study. You're talking about this one little thing that everyone's going to go nuts about. So I didn't go. My publisher was not pleased, but I wouldn't entertain it. I'm going to read a little bit from the book. First of all, the acknowledgements. I'd like to thank the Cursor Trust for the award, the late John Sullivan, writer of Only Fools and Horses fame, for his inspiration, and Ronnie Barker for his delivery as Norman Stanley Fletcher in Porridge. As Fletch says, if you can't do the time, do not do the crime. This is where I wobble, so forgive me. This book is dedicated to Amelia Grace, Sophia May and Megan Rose. Sorry Daddy went away, he missed you every day. Got through that. And then the introduction. I'm a first-time offender detained at Her Majesty's pleasure at HMP X, a holding prison that's considered one of the hardest to handle. Not because it's full of Category A prisoners, but because the rules of bang up are the worst in terms of prison liberty. You are locked up 22 hours a day, yes a day, in a 14-foot by 8-foot cell between the two of you. As a first-time offender, you've no idea how the system works, you're clueless to it all, and it's frightening for both the person going away and the family and loved ones left behind. It occurred to me the little book of prison would prove useful to you as a first-time offender and help you get through what is surely the most difficult time in your life. I wish I'd been given the information between these pages. The first few weeks would have been better and the learning curve not so steep. I've dedicated the LBP to my 3 daughters at the start of the book, but it's also for all my loved ones as well as my fellow prisoners who helped me bring together these invaluable guidelines for getting on behind bars. To every reader, good luck with your bird. It's not what you think. There's a glossary at the back. The bird is your sentence. And do yourself a favour and don't come back. So the whole thing was about the journey, but for me really it was about self-help. I mean, I just woke up out of a hypomanic bender and went from a police station to the magistrates. Magistrate said, this is naughty and you're going to be remanded. So then I was in a little Reliance van and on my way to a man's jail. And I got there on a Monday night and you meet the reception officers and it's a full body search, so quick touch your toes time, and I'm praying for an officer with thin fingers and like getting screwed by a screw. That didn't actually happen actually. I wish it, obviously it's funnier to say it, but they've got these magnetic chairs. Or was I? These magnetic chairs, like, they search you for all sorts of mobile phones mainly, so you get through that bit, you're still a bit like, what is going on? And then they drag you onto a wing of 180 prisoners, 3 stories, old Victorian thing. And then you wake up, well, you're supposed to sleep, but you're tossing and turning all night. Not tossing, you're turning all night. And then you wake up and then you're on the wing. And it's just, it is like a different planet, of course. I mean, who's been inside? Can I have a show of hands who's had a sabbatical? Jeffrey Archer not here, no? Duncan Ballantyne, he had a stint. Lester Piggott? No. Okay, so I wrote 5 golden rules at the front of the book. The first one was keep your head down, do your bird, ride out your bang up. Forgive me if you think it's something your dad would say when you moved in with your missus, because it's not. Ride out your bang up is to serve your sentence. Do your bird is to serve your sentence. 2, it's nice to be nice. Entertain, be positive and see the bright side. 3, don't believe everything you hear in HMP. 4, pay your bills if you borrow. And 5, never lose your cool. I'm going to say about life in prison. It's not life, it's a regimented existence. And in prison, it's like a microeconomy. You trade sugar and coffee and chocolate and Rizzlers and a Mac-free Gillette razor to actually shave, because the prison razors are nonsense. But tobacco is king. Drugs, of course, but tobacco is king. I mean, it's the only place where a health officer on day one doesn't recommend you stop smoking because it's that stressful being in that environment. And a lot of the tobacco barons, the guys that sell all the tobacco, don't actually smoke. They just, it's a currency, and they just use it. And if you're new, and obviously you're shitting yourself, so you're smoking like, then you end up having to borrow tobacco, and then the extortion rates just, you learn your lesson very quickly, basically. But you pay your bills, and then that's that. So what does the community look like? Well, new and basic prisoners are in standard grey toweling trackies with no pockets, which just drives you nuts. Burgundy t-shirt, another sort of jumper which is hideous. There's a lot of skinheads on the wing, a lot of tattoos, a lot of Nike trainers and nice gazelles and classics, and I love them with trainers, so I can appreciate that. There weren't many high-tech or any sort of, because that would give you no profile on the wing whatsoever. You probably just, you wouldn't come out yourself. When you're enhanced in your medium term, you actually are in your own clothes. So you can see the sort of hierarchy as you first go in. The posture, well, hands down the front of the trousers, like both hands, pocket billiard sort of stuff going on. And then when you're introduced, they bring the hand out and they go, all right, bruv. And you're like that. I'm like, all right, mate. I'm not going near you. Imagine at a network or sales meeting like that. Morning. It just ain't going to happen, is it? I'm like that. Thanks, but no thanks. Prison jargon. There's some perlers. There's a lot in the book. But all right, bruv, what's happening? Was one that happened all the time. And once I found my feet and I knew who these people were, and depending who I said it to and what mood I was in, I'd be like, what do you mean what's happening? I'll see you at breakfast. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening today, tomorrow, next week. I'm here for another 4 or 5 months. Nothing's happening. And I just sort of strop off. Depends what mood you're in. Code E, your co-defendant. So if these boys come in teams, if they're up for the same gig, then it's their code D. These boys are thick as thieves, pardon the pun, but they are, absolutely. I remember one guy saying about his code D, I would trust him with my life, but I wouldn't trust him with my wife. You can kind of get the gist. Smack rats, well, heroin is the biggest issue, not just in society as a whole, but certainly in the prison environment. There's lots of drugs in prison, not a lot of Viagra, don't really seem to sell a lot of that, but heroin is massive, and smack rats is what they are, and basically the minute they're out their cell, they are after you for anything. They just ask for everything all the time. Dog ends, have you got any dog ends of this, and they'll go and do something with them. I mean, they're relentless. So some of the boys on the wing would put a sign up on their pad door saying, I have not got this, just to get rid of it. And when new ones would come on, just for a bit of a giggle, we would go, no, we ain't got none, but he's got something there, just go in and ask him. And we stand and watch this guy go in and then just get straight back out again and be like that. Good. That's the sort of entertainment you have to do when you're stuck in this sort of environment. Obviously it's not funny at all, but at the time, we just laughed and laughed and laughed. Those long days just flew by. So there's a thing called golden hour, which is the morning rush hour. It's like the Grand National of sorts for prisoners. It's the only time you've got to get everything in. So the phone call, the shower, the application forms, the medication, to get out in the yard, get your provisions, empty your rubbish bin, do everything. It's carnage. Golden hour, it is not golden, and it is never ever an hour, right? 40 minutes tops. And if you go anywhere on golden hour, shut your cell door. Just, even if you're wandering up there to come back again, just shut your cell door, because the smack rats will be in there and they'll just take whatever they can. And when the first day that I was there, and I was with a new lad, and there was another new lad across the way, and he just walked across there, and he walked back, and his telly was gone. Right, and telly is your saving soul. No one likes David Dixon TV, but you do when you're in there. I can tell you that much. Didn't get a telly for a week, bless him. So yeah, always shut your door. There's There's a thing that is said, your family are serving the same sentence as you, but from the other side of the wall. Sounds like a cliche, but it is absolutely true. Absolutely. And the book kind of gives the families an insight into what's happening in prison, because when they're on the phone, they're saying everything's all right, you know, don't worry about me, I'm all right. And then they ask their loved one will go, yeah, everything's all right, we're all right, because they don't want the other one to worry. But no one really talks about what's happening and what's going on. And, you know, even getting tweets and stuff from nans, because sometimes the lads that are in there have got such a bad parental issue with their parents, it's their grandparents that are their sort of loved one, if you like, their nearest and dearest. And like even the nans then get a sense of it with the books. They can talk about what they were doing on induction, or have they got a job yet? Get a cleaner's job, that's a good job. You know, all these sorts of things that just break down these barriers and these stereotypes of what prison is. My counsellor calls it positive stroking. It's not what you think. It's where you're doing something that's actually helping someone and you get this intrinsic reward back, and I'm very proud of that. It's been crazy since the book's come out. The fans range from Will Self, Jeffrey Archer, Lord Ramsbotham on the Howard League for Penal Reform, his House of Lords, he absolutely loves the book. Howard Marks, loving Howard Marks. He's supposed to be doing a new book called Tripping, and I'm trying to work something out with Howard, but we're still there. Hopefully Trevor Bayliss, but he's already gone. Very soon Chris Huhne. I mean, he is driving political change. But my favourite has to be Sister Mary, who I met at one of these events, and she was in the full gear and the hat, and she's come over and said, "Oh, we really love your book. All the sisters really love your book." And I'm going white as a sheet. I'm thinking there's a lot of colourful language in that, and there's a fair few masturbation references as well. And my theatre of the mind's going overdrive, and I'm there going, "Thanks very much, thanks very much." And I started to wonder what she was wearing underneath her habit. And I think that comes from watching Father Ted for so many years. It certainly isn't my mind. It must have been the Father Ted implant. My biggest regret about my undiagnosed mental condition and the subsequent incarceration, sabbatical, as I tell my consultant clients, went to work in Scotland for a bit, about 5 months, caused, my biggest regret is my 6-year-old daughter at the time, my eldest, and I remember my ex-wife ringing up when I rang her, sorry, explaining that my daughter was there, clutching a photo of Daddy, saying, "Where's Daddy, where's Daddy?" And that experience and that thing can't be undone. It, you know, that will stay with me forever. Massive regret, there was nothing I could do about it. Not surprisingly, I got served my divorce papers while I was in. It's always nice to get post. Nice big envelope. I'm like that, yes! Opened it up and just was wounded for quite a while. I think that was the day I walked out and went, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. I was in quite bad shape after that envelope. But I was lucky, I got a job as a library orderly. Has anyone seen Shawshank Redemption? Yeah. Got my little wooden trolley and that. Chick in my top pocket. It was a good job because I got the chance to trade and have some currency in there. So low quality PlayStation games. Happy Feet. No one's really played Happy Feet. They made a game for PlayStation called Happy Feet. You've got this big bruiser playing it in his cell because there ain't that many games out there. Charity shop choice DVDs. But that's all they had because everyone had nicked the decent ones. You didn't see them again. So TV guides, they cost 39 pence, right? You've only got to order them through the library. But a lot of them didn't know that. So TV guides were gold because their biggest thing was TV, of course. So you never see a thin catering orderly in prison. They're always getting triple helping. So I was trading with them and made sure that I was getting fed. And I used to do letters to the judges for some of these guys. And that's what gave me a bit of an insight into, you know, there was lots of similarities between these guys and these offences. And there was a lot in terms of they didn't speak to their parents. There was sort of similarities in a lot of these guys. But I wish I'd have had a chick in my pocket. I'm sure I could have traded something decent for that. But there you go. But the best currency, apart from tobacco, is porn magazines. You know, art, still life. And what happened was they used to order them in to the library. I wouldn't indulge in anything like that. But when they came in, we would actually use them and trade them for weeks and weeks. And then we'd have the guys telling us, where's my porn mag? I ordered it weeks ago. Oh, I don't know, it'll be it. So we used to use them for a few weeks and then we'd give them back to the rightful owner. And they'd be like, what the f... And it's like, obviously, we're not talking pages stuck together mainly, but I mean, it was obvious that they'd been well used before they got to the rightful owner. What can you do? But the best trades were the guys in single cells because they were white as a sheet and walking like John Wayne. They're like, happy days. They were all right. So I was in this holding prison, so it's Cat B. So you've got serious offenders in there, next to guys that have done one thing wrong on one silly night and have ended up in there. So it's quite a mixed bag, really. But paedophiles were my worst nightmare, having 3 young girls. And they got more library time, they got more association. And they would order papers through the library, but they'd order the Times and the Guardian and the Spectator. And you know, they were very well educated people in order to be able to groom and do what they did. And I found that very difficult. And they would come in, but they were on the vulnerable wing. So they were with guys that were getting victimised on the normal wing, so they were in with them. So you imagine that horrificness of being victimised by going into prison, and then you end up on the wing next to guys that are capable of doing such demonic things. And that was a really difficult one for me, because since coming out and being an ex-offender, I'm trying to break stereotypes. I'm trying to sort of say, you know, people serve their sentence, they can be rehabilitated, we talk about forgiveness, and yet it's always very personal about what's happened to you in your life, and would I be able to forgive a paedophile if he attacked my children? I mean, that is the issue, that kind of is the conversation. But what was really heinous was we would pass our porno mags around, you know, for guys, and paedophiles would pass their case notes around so they could get off on each other's case notes. And that just really made me feel, you know, very unhappy. Okay, so lighten up a bit. Application forms. Everything you do in there, you need an application form. Everything. Doctor, dentist, education, jobs, clothing, visits, extra telephone numbers, anything. And they always get lost, and it pisses you off and it frustrates you because it takes forever to get anything done. So we used to have a bit of fun with that as well. So we wrote an app once for the head cleaner saying he had genital warts and he needed to see someone really urgently. And we gave it to the nice lady pit officer who became more attractive by the length of sentence I served, actually, which is a weird one, but it does happen. And in Golden Hour, she's come over and said, is he all right and stuff, and we just sort of stood there and just shoulders started to go, and he's like, who's done this, like a big guy. And obviously he couldn't prove who it was, so yeah, that was another Golden Hour that was golden-ish for about 10 seconds. Gambling as well. Gambling's not allowed because it can cause confrontation, but it was a bit of entertainment, and I love my golf, and the Open was on at the time, and Darren Clark, right, I love my golf, and Darren Clark was in a good place, got a new missus, and he was playing well, so I put him down for me on my sweepstake, and then I went round the wing and took little skinny burns off everyone, and I put Sevi Ballesteros on the list because I knew there was Polish that just wanted to gamble. He'd been dead 2 years, so someone's gone for Sevi, and I did some other stuff. But anyway, I got all this tobacco, and I sat there for the whole weekend just chain smoking. And luckily I won, but I swear on the last day they were starting to get a bit wise. Some of the top boys were going, who have you got again? How many people put in? How much is the winnings? And asking me these questions, and I'm there thinking, Arsenal's going 20 pence, 50 pence. I'm like, oh no, it's all right, I'm all right, I'm all right. And anyway, I won, thank God. Yeah, but gambling obviously can cause problems. It would have caused me a load of problems had I have not won. But I was a bit of a cuckoo in there, to be honest. I pretty much was a cuckoo in most places. Not tonight, feel completely at home. But a lot of them thought I was CID. They thought it was a plant, which I thought was a bit interesting. But I played it up a little bit with a few of them, you know. What's your mother's maiden name? What's your postcode? Papa Oscar what? You know, I don't know why they thought that, but there you go. Probably because I didn't subscribe to put my hands down my pants and go, what's happening every 2 minutes? I don't know. But I made an early decision when I got in there to get fit. I thought, I'm going to treat this as a health farm, and I'm going to get into the gym. Little did I know it takes you weeks to get up the pecking order to get into the gym. So finally, after 4 weeks and a lot of TV guides, I managed to get in. And they gave me a vest, right? I'm not the biggest of fellas, a vest and a pair of shorts. I felt like the guy that went to a new school and didn't know it was PE and got given someone else's kit to wear, do you know what I mean? I'm like, at a vest. I'm looking at all these massive guys getting changed, I'm thinking, shit. I've walked in the gym, I look like the last turkey in the shop. I'm like that. And I'm having to swap sets with these guys and they're lifting 100 kilogram and doing like 20 in a set, and I'm leaning into them going, can I go next? And I've got like 20 and I'm like that, doing 5. It was embarrassing basically, but because they all started somewhere, you get a little bit of respect for going in and training, but not a lot, to be honest. I seen one of them on the wing, I said, where's my pad mate? He went, he's over there. He went, that way. My bodybuilder joke, you not like that one? He's gone over there. Jesus. I said, can I go on last so you've all had a drink? Okay, hands up, how many men cry? Can I have a show of hands, please? I love you, man. There's a massive issue in prison, massive issue. We've got the worst reoffending rate in Europe. First of all, we've got the biggest prison population we've ever had. And in my experience, and I go and do university talks to criminology students, and I talk about emotional shutdown, which is, it's the emotional roller coaster they go through. Basically, when you're on the wing, you can't show any emotion, because if you do, you're going to be treated like a victim. You'll end up getting robbed and victimised and what have you. So you have to show that I don't give a toss about anything or whatever's happening. And then when you're behind your door, you have a chance to think about what you've done. What you put your victims through, what you're putting your family through, what you put your children through, and really what you're putting yourself through. And that sort of emotional tap that you have to be able to control and turn on and off, a lot of these guys can't do it, and they stop seeing their long-term partners. They won't see them at visits, they won't ring them, they don't want to see their kids while they're in, because they can't handle it. Some of them used to put their photos of their kids on the wall and that. I couldn't do that personally. I would have them in a drawer, and I would write a letter, and I would look at them, and I would put them away and put them to one side. But depending on the length of sentence, you'll always get the same sentence vaguely, weeks, months, years. But the emotional sentence that everyone serves is unique to their setup and what they're going through. And you can see the ones that are in and out, it becomes so acute that they don't have any emotion anymore. They've completely shut down, so they've lost their empathy. They're devoid of emotion. So when they get out, how's that going to help them not reoffending again? And I think that's something that we need to wake up to. Otherwise, we're just going to have the same problem. That's my little soapbox. Tattoos on the wing. Tattoos are everywhere. I haven't got a tattoo, so I looked a bit of an oddball again, so I didn't have one. You're 3 times more likely to go back to prison once you've been in prison once. That's statistics. And one week this guy came back, he'd only been gone 3 weeks, and he came back and he's got this big new tattoo, Tracy or something. And we're like, that's nice. Where'd you get that? Me and this catering lad are like, that's nice. He went, don't talk to me about that. So what happened? He went out, he got back with his missus, went and had the tattoo done. He went out on a drink, came back, found his mate in bed with his missus. He's hit his mate, he's gone back in on remand. He's wearing Tracy on his neck, and we're like, try and change the subject. He looked wounded. It's a thing in prison, they call you, you look wounded, he looked wounded. I like that saying. And so I said to him, forget that, mate, don't worry. What's this tattoo on your arm? He went, no, that was another bird. She got me for kidnap. I was in the first time because of her. I'm like, oh, please. My mates turned around and just see his shoulders going. I'm like, oh. I said, I'd stick away from the old tattoo parlours if I were you, miss. But seriously, it gets worse because I'm from Portsmouth, and it's a big town. And there are some young lads in Portsmouth that have their prison number tattooed on their neck, like it's a badge of honour or something. That is testament to what we're doing wrong in society if they are wearing that as a badge of honour right now. As I understand it, and like I say, 5 months in, but a lot of research and done a lot of talks and stuff, for me there was like a 30% of hardcore recidivist criminals from criminal backgrounds that are always going to be criminals. That's them. There's a bottom 30% that, like me, that went in because of something they shouldn't have They didn't know what they were doing. They weren't treated. Should have gone mental health route, really. And I'm not going back in there again. It was a waste of my time. But there's a middle section. And if we just do punishment and don't do rehabilitation, what will happen is they start to believe that that's all they're good enough for, and they start to think they're in this criminal element. These top 30% criminals commit crime because they believe that the money they generate from it will pay for the time they serve as a sentence. They come out to something. It's a career. But a lot of these guys have just done bad choices, bad social, have been chucked out of school, and there's a blame culture. The police blame the school because they should have kept them in school. And it just goes on, it just grows. It's a real issue that I think we need to tackle if we can. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. But I've got to talk about the showers. You know what I'm talking about. The rumours about getting in the showers are absolute rubbish. But basically, I suppose I was older, uglier, and in worse shape, like the turkey in the shop, than most of these lads, so maybe I didn't get that. But I do remember being in the shower and there's no shower curtain and I'm like that. And I've just heard behind me, bend over. And I was like, nice to meet you, Ben. How you doing, squire? You all right? That's a gag from some other thing. I just threw it in there. Sarah, I'm getting depressed. Can you do me another drink, please? Make it a double. I've been invited to some interesting places because the book House of Commons was good. The Shadow Minister for Prisons asked us to come and talk to her about ideas. Well, when you're the Shadow Minister, that's all you got is time to listen to people say. But she was really attentive, but I didn't tell her I was still on tag. So I had this tag around my leg. And actually, me and this other guy who'd been in, Chris Streaks, he'd been in for 22 years. He'd done something different. He was actually the first paid criminal to be in the bill. He was obviously typecast. He was always playing the prisoner, but he was in there for quite a while. Like, anyway, he got a scholarship to RADA. He went and did this one-man show through Europe. Lovely guy, but served 22 years. And I'm leaning into him going, because there was metal detectors everywhere, armed police, and I'm leaning into him going, do you reckon that alarm will go off on that? I said, because I've got this tag on my leg. He went, I fucking hope so, it'll be hilarious. And he's like, you'll be on the, he's whispering to me, you'll be on the floor and they'll have guns in. He's got something strapped to his leg, and I'm like, I'm sweating cobs getting through this. Right, beep, 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 but it didn't go off. But I was lucky. But we talked to her about ways of breaking that cycle and ways of breaking the negative past into the positive future. And the Kersler Trust was the award that I got, but they do all sorts. They do model making, they do painting and artwork and all sorts. I met Grayson Perry at this gig. Has anyone heard of Grayson Perry? Damien Hirst, The Pottery World. But I didn't meet Grayson, I met his alter ego, Claire. And I didn't know who she was, or he was. It just looked like Barbara Cartland, basically. I felt like I was on acid, looking at this bright yellow, big green stick on eyelashes. But he iced a cake for the Kersler Trust, and it raised $2.5 grand. He did 2 little sketches, they raised $8 grand each. In 40 minutes, they raised 85 grand. But what happens is, 90,000 population of prisoners, 10,000 every year go in for the Kersler Award. And South Bank do it for 8 weeks. And I was lucky enough to go and talk and give a reading from the book. And you see so many proud parents and so many, you know, suddenly they've done something positive that their families are proud of, and it takes them on a different trajectory. But the majority of them, it says anonymous on the bottom because they don't want their boys on the wing to know they're soft as arse, that they've done some painting or done some pottery or something. But they're proud of what they've done. So I did a charity walk from John O'Groats to Land's End. I'm a Radio 4 geek, don't tell no one, but Archers and me, Frisian Herds, I know more than most people, man, I'm telling you. But after the Archers was front row, which I love as well, and then there was a thing called The Bishop and the Prisoner. And this lady who had been multiply raped used to go in and talk to groups of rapists. And it just knocked me over. I was like, how much courage will it take to be able to do something like that? And what happens with the Forgiveness Project, they do a lot more than that, even from bully reconciliations through schools to that serious stuff. The rehabilitation and the reoffending rate drops like a stone. Sometimes they put the victim and the criminal together in the same room for other crimes. It's a real mechanism for change and for rehabilitation. And I believe that if the victim of a crime can forgive, then society at large needs to at least contemplate forgiveness. Just have an informed opinion. Because there was a tweet from a lady when I was doing a talk and I was going to Bristol. Her son was at Bristol University in his second year. Anyone students here? Any students? Anyone used to be a student? Did you used to get twatted when you were a student? Mm-hmm. Well, her son was a rugby player. He got drunk in Bristol. He was set upon by 3 geezers and he defended himself. And he was serving an ABH, 14 months in prison. And she was distraught. But society might think that the guy that shot the 2 police officers, if he did, I think that's still at trial, I think society sees that person and that student lad as one and the same and stereotyped together. And that's why you have categorisations of prisoners, because there are different types. But I think sometimes we get carried away that they're all the same. So I decided to walk 62 days, 1,160 miles, go up Ben Nevis, go up Hadrian's Wall for the Forgiveness Project, and it was hilarious. I absolutely thrived on it, raised some dough. Best day going around this beach, Highlands, wind in my face. This woman had said, walk around the beach, it's lovely. I was making diamonds in my nose. I was getting blasted to death by all this sand. And then I came across about 80 seals, just mums and pups and whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. Quick photo onto Twitter. I've just met the locals going out clubbing tonight, gonna dance to seal. No one laughed at that either, it's ridiculous. But in Frankie land, I was like, ha ha ha. Kept me going. But prison, I know I've got to tie up things now. I'm nearly done, Sarah. Prison is about a mentality thing. I mean, I was lucky, I was older, I had a few life skills. I was a massive fan of porridge. So that served me very, very well. The Little Book of Prison will take you on a journey from that sort of police station, the court, to the bang up. The first few months, and it's done week by week. And I always say, if you want to know what prison's like, it's for you. If you need to know what it's like, it's definitely for you. But we have a new Minister for Justice now, Chris Grayling. He used to be the employment minister. He did such a great job. They've uplifted him 30 grand and put him on the cabinet. Good man. He says he wants a rehabilitation revolution on his website, but nationally in all the papers he says he's going to make prison harder. Well, you can't do both. You've got to have rehabilitation and you've got to have punishment, and they have to be together, because if they're not, then we're just going to repeat the delivery mistakes that we've been making for a while. So going to prison can serve a purpose if you focus on a positive future, not a negative past. Probation officers, youth offender team guys use the book to give to lads that are on their way to going into prison. And in some instances, it stopped them going because it made them think about things. And again, I'm very grateful for that, and I'm very proud of that. And you know, I hope it keeps on doing the good work. So to end it, I don't know if I mentioned I've got a book out, Amazon, play.com. If you're gonna go in, get a copy of the book, right, and follow the golden rules, right. And on the first night, if you end up with a tear rolling down your cheek, it's all right. If you end up with something else rolling down your other cheek, unlucky. Thank you.
Anyone have a question? I'm sure there's lots.
Have you ever thought about perhaps writing a book about your experiences?
What a great idea. There is another couple actually, because I was sectioned after I came out of prison, so there's another one about the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest scenario. It's all rubber rooms and jackets with arms that go all around the back. So there's another book there, and then there's another one about the walk. So there is a couple more there, but at least with the right publisher at the right time. So we'll see if that comes together.
Anyone else?
So in your experience, how many people in prison did you meet who were there because they had an undiagnosed mental disorder of some kind?
There were loads. I swear there were loads. You've got 2 primary care trusts. One looks after conventional health, one looks after mental health. You've got someone with some issues that tries eventually to get it read to write an app, get sent to the wrong trust. So they're languishing, they get bullied, they end up in the healthcare on suicide watch, and then they end up in the vulnerable prisoners wing. And I've seen one guy come in, and because of the library bit and I'm bouncing around all over the prison, he'll never get back from that experience. Do you know what I mean? That has ended the rest of his days. He's just broken now. And that is unforgivable. One guy came in, and he managed to wriggle out of his handcuffs. he had his boxer shorts around his fingers, a vest, no clothes on, and gibbering like a loon. And the reception orderlies and the officers, wouldn't you have thought they'd have actioned mental health to come and have a word with this geezer? No, he put him straight on the wing, he got robbed, and he just went, suicide watch. Mental health. But let's face it, there's enough misdiagnosis in our normal outside of the bars. What about when it's in the bars? That's why I'm a little bit of a fan of privatisation, because you can pick whatever. I'd pick Bupa. They could come in at the same price as National Health. Might do a little bit better as well. But massive issues. Mental health, massive.
Do you think it would make a big difference for reoffenders if there was no TV and no gym and no heroin available to them?
Yeah, they don't want to watch daytime Dickinson TV. If you pumped Open University in there, they would learn something. If you give them all Meccano sets, they will build something. Seriously. I mean, we are talking about a captive audience in its most literal sense here. Yeah, man. But they didn't get that one, but they got the captive audience one. What's that about? Now, weirdly, I worked as a consultant for an awarding body, like ABC Awards they were called, but like City and Guilds. So I went into Milton Keynes Prison and tried to sell them qualifications to Manchester College, who delivered the qualifications. A year later, I'm banged up doing one of the qualifications I used to sell, right? Talk about a fall from grace, right? But there is no provision, and that's what I'm saying about the creative industries. John McVicar, has anyone seen the film McVicar? All right, hands up, who's heard of The Who? Don't plead no special case for me, that ain't the way I get my liberty, and back inside I've been betrayed. That's the first opening line of the McVicar. What a soundtrack. But John McVicar, who became a professional broadcaster, his take on it was, you can't get the top 30% recidivist criminals to stop being criminals unless they decide for themselves to stop being criminals, yeah? And things like the Kersler Trust and having a creative industry. You've got NVQs. Has anyone heard of Timpsons? Key cutters and boot menders. They do a level 2 NVQ for decap prisoners, and they recruit them when they get out, yeah? So next time you go to Timpson's, get your house key cut. It's a prolific burglar cutting your key. No, here's an exemplar. I've met James Timpson. He's got an OBE too. His old man's got a CBE. They should be seen as exemplars, and they should then be given what they call double funding to do courses for offenders. But hold on a second. We're struggling with our own guys on the outside that are qualifying and doing their degrees and not being able to get a job. What's more important? That's the issue. I mean, there was a recent bit of legislation and they took the word rehabilitation out of the title at the 11th hour because rehabilitation is not a vote winner. Punishment is. But there was a real need. If you didn't take the tellies out, you know what happens when you watch telly, don't you? After about 20 minutes, the old alpha waves start coming out, don't they? And it's not that you want to watch what's on, you just want to watch what's least annoying to be on. And it just pacifies prisoners. And that's why drugs on the wing. The officers have got a really hard job, very hard job. I did change management in the public sector, right? I looked at it from both angles. I was like, oh my God, imagine that as your client base that you have to facilitate. Oh my God. So pacifying them and letting them smoke some weed so they're just going to walk around going, all right, man, eating loads of crisps. That's better than them losing the plot and going at it with everyone. Do you know what I mean? But you've got an ability there. And they're talking about doing more enterprise work and getting businesses. I used to fix computers whilst I was in my prison. And those computers were a charity that went out to Africa. And that's a laudable thing to do. All right, we didn't do many. We had games, we were playing Space Invaders and shit all day. But we did a few. But that was positive, yeah? That's something you can do. You've got these guys and they want to do something. I swear to God, no one wants to be locked in their own toilet for 22 hours a day. Do you know what I mean? So you can do something with them. With them. If they wish to partake in something, then they will. I swear they will. Thank you. Anyone?
One more question.
So is that the trick? They always say it's basically boredom that's the kind of the major kind of issue. So if you were to run the little book of Prison, what would you actually do? Would it be work programs or hard labour for the top 30%, or what would you do?
Oh man, I had a meeting with the National Offender Management Service, and I thought, this is it. Finally, I'm going to get some book sales, basically, because it was like, we could issue this to every offender that goes in the system. I'm like, yes, go on, and it's helping everybody, of course. And he said that with three sentences, and I'm like, here we go, this is about bloody time. And then the next 10 sentences are about how it couldn't possibly be used because of this, this, and this. So, running the prison system, just recently, there's a thing called Email a Prisoner, right? UK export, right? It's just launched in Holland, right? It's took him 7 years. He does 152 prisons now, and emails go into the system, yeah? They wouldn't allow it for so long, but in Europe, they all have internet connections. That's all right, as long as it's monitored per category. So we're as productive as the tools we give the bods in there to be productive with. And it's outside agencies and, you know, things like the Samaritans that do a listener service, which stops people getting suicidal thoughts and all the rest of it. Email the prisoners with communication in there. Private prisons, give them a phone in each cell. Mate, get Nicky Campbell on that on a BBC 5 Live. That's ludicrous. No, it's not. If everyone talks to everyone and they keep their social networks, family and friends and loved ones, when they get out, they've still got those social networks. There's an argument for that. You wouldn't have smuggled mobile phones in, being rife, and people fighting over them, and people getting injured over them, and people really seriously getting hurt over having these mobiles, if everyone had a phone. Do you know these sort of basic communication tools? The frustrating thing is, in Europe, they've got most of these things, and they can show best practice over a number of years. In the UK, we've just got this bastion that says, tough on crime, punish, 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 and no real feel about the rehabilitation. And it's everybody's responsibility when an offender comes out. Because what do we expect them to do? Go back in. Titan prisons next, isn't it? Fucking hell. G4S, look at what they did in the Olympics, and now they're running parts of probation? Oh my God. Privatisation gone mad. I'm turning into a socialist.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Aaron. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. Thank you to everyone for filming, and for Rod for pictures, and Frankie on the door. And thank you to Funtime for the amazing food. Matt,
Yay!